Hello there everyone. Today we're going to be doing Photoshop and InDesign. So I've got a layout over here, and essentially I'm going to just show some tips on how to use the Adobe suite to your advantage by going back and forth between InDesign and Photoshop in order to replace these images. So what we're going to be doing is introducing these furniture pieces, or this furniture piece, as the product, essentially being showcased here as a case study. And we've got some scenes generated in AI that eventually led to this design of a chair that I then modeled. But we'll go ahead and kind of do some photo matching, like some modification, so that all this kind of falls in within one style. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Over here in InDesign, this is just a generic template or file I've been working on. So we'll go over here into the spread and hit Control-0 so you can zoom in on the active page. So for this side, we will go ahead and actually enlarge this number with Control-Shift so it scales uniformly. Okay, it seems like for this one, there we go, we don't have to hold Control, so we can just hold Shift and place it down here. That's kind of how I want it displayed. And I don't want any text in this one necessarily. We're gonna just keep it clean with a PNG of the chair. So right now we have a black background, and that's being set up by our master. So this spread is using our B master over here in pages. So that's why we have one side black and one side white. In that case, I know that I can just start placing a shape here. So I can use my rectangle tool here in order to place an image in this section. The fill doesn't matter right now because once I go into my files over here, I can grab a PNG and do this back view, and then we set the fill over here to clear. So we select that icon, which is a white square with the red slash or the red bar across it, so that we can get it see-through all the way to the background. So for this one, in order to enlarge the frame, we'll do Control and Shift together, so we scale the image along with the image frame. That could work pretty good. Maybe I'll select this corner up here and hold Alt Shift so that I only close in the frame a little bit and create a bit of a border, a bit of a break there. And bring it in from the top a little more. Okay. Off over onto the right, we could use some of the images generated by the AI. So we'll go down here and select this one, for example, which is part of the initial inspiration. And it's way out of scale, so we'll select the center. And this is the entire image, so it scaled in really, really large. So we'll hold Shift and Alt together as we scale it down so it scales to center, and we're good. So what I'm running into here is I have certain colors being used over here on the AI generated image, and I have a different set of colors over here on the actual chair. So what we'll do is we can right click, we can do edit original, but we'll do edit with Photoshop because we dropped in a PNG. So we hit edit in Photoshop, and that'll just open it right up in Photoshop. Now what we want to do here is bring in this image that we're matching to, and we'll end up deleting this later, but we're just using it as reference. And so I'm going to select this layer over here on the bottom right, and I'm going to tweak these colors so they end up looking more like what we have over here on the right. So we could go to our adjustments. If you don't have this here, you can go to Window, Adjustments, So under adjustments, I'll go into my hue saturation. That's always a good place to start, and just start increasing these values or adjusting them as needed to match what's seen beneath. So that's a bit closer. Hue, I don't want to mess with here too much. In fact, I won't mess with it at all. We can go back to adjustments and add another one. So we'll hit color balance, and this is where we can tone more towards those orange, reddish hues by pushing to yellow and red. And your purple to green level you'll have to gauge. But yeah, primarily go with whatever tones you're using in your reference. We want to get that wood a bit darker, and we want to do that only in some sections, maybe. So what we can do is hit our wand tool, magic wand, right click over the wood and do color range, so that we can then select the tone of the wood there and alter this fuzziness color so that we only select those. And that applied itself directly on the mask, which is not what I intended. But we can, let's see, that's actually not bad. Yeah, that's fine. We can keep the mask there. I'll right click and we can do add mask to selection. So now what just got applied as a mask, I also have a selection right now. And create a new layer, hit B for the brush tool. And with a soft brush, I can hold Alt and sample this darker wood tone, something that's more towards the middle. And I can kind of brush that in, maybe even shade it only in here, like the corners. And we'll adjust this right now. We can alter the brush a bit. We can do opacity 30%, flow 20%, so that it's really, really soft. And do it on the inside. Then you can do it with a bit of a smaller brush and larger brush just to kind of dab around. There we go. Especially with graphics that are really big, you can do a bit more detailing, but with this technique you're basically just painting in some stylized aspects to it. So with this, if I see you turn it off, you turn it on, it's a little brushed over, but we can also select a different blend mode. So by just having this highlighted here in blue, I can use the arrows on my keyboard or your scroll to find the right blend mode. And remember, you can always lower the opacity as well to change up the intensity. But let's see, let's keep always the reference in view. I think I'm gonna just go with that, just to bring it down lower. And one more thing we can do is select our original layer and duplicate. Bring that layer to the top. And we do filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And just kind of blur it out till you fade out the edges. Hit OK. Set that to overlay. And that just makes the whole image kind of have this bloom effect. And we can tweak that with opacity for the intensity. Or we can do a curves adjustment to that layer, which would be going just above that, hitting adjustments, going to curves, right click, create clipping mask, so it only applies that top blurred out layer, and call this blur layer. And over here on the curves, we can kind of tweak the dark levels and the highlight levels. All right. We've got a bit of glossiness too, or like highlights. So we can paint that in as well. We can do B, bring down the brush size over a new blank layer. Set it to white. This can also be done with a light in 3D. But it can also be, you know, depending on how you're going for or what you're going for. It's nice to add some details in like this, especially for concept presentations. Like if you're only presenting something for review, which is an initial idea, you know, if you're just trying to suggest something, I feel like sometimes people get really caught up with photoreal renders, and so if you can make something look more like it's just a sketch, or like it's still in a conceptual in an early stage, yeah, I feel like that, you know, like something like this I would call a sketch. I wouldn't call a render, or I'd call an illustration, just because I'm not really going photoreal I'm not going photoreal here and like working out this entire chair is just a concept design. So how the style of that view, the style of that drawing, right, also conveys a little bit of where you are in the process, or what that idea is supposed to be taken as, right? If it's a render, I assume it's like it's basically either real or I can, you know, we're ready to make it real. Whereas here it's more of just a concept. So in terms of like pitching it or illustrating it, anyway, you get the point. We'll move on to saving this render. Let's see. We'll create a new folder in here for edits. All right. And when we close that out, we can go back into our InDesign file, and we can bring in our new image here from the edits. And it should just replace exactly over the previous. Okay, that's looking good. If we want to see it full quality within InDesign, we can go to View. We can go Display Performance, High Quality Display, and we'll see it closer to what it actually would look like. Okay, we can drop in something else and go over another technique. So let's see. There is this one on the bottom right. I don't necessarily want to show all of them, but you can just kind of adjust this so you get that view. Cool. I think I might even want to take maybe take the number here and hit I for the eyedropper. Ooh, we don't want it over there. We want it over. Well, that's fine. As a way of getting this color, we can just kind of sample it here, even though it will go onto the fill. We'll double click here, copy the hex code, switch that back to clear, and double click in here so we can get the text color. So right here we have a white stroke. We'll just paste our color code there. Neat. All right, moving on. I just have some pre-made layouts for different views, and we could add some text like some other things throughout to involve that, but we just want to focus on getting these images ready first, and then we'll worry about text or copy, or maybe along the way we can look at some of that too. But if I want to clear this out, I want to just keep it as a placeholder, I can always click on this circle in the center to direct select that image in the frame, and I can delete it. And the frame is still there, it's just a placeholder now. I can give it a fill so that I know that it's there. Hey Em, thanks for dropping in on the chat. If at any point anyone wants to drop in a question or a suggestion on the chat, feel free, please go ahead. Alright, so we'll get on with this page. So I want to just adjust this frame here so I create some separation. And we'll drop in some images. Actually, this image already has that chair in it. So I'll go ahead and select it and just scale this image up so I can focus in a bit more on that top level. Cool. These two have nothing to do with it, so let's see what we can replace them with. We can do, let's do the big one, and let's put down this view. Now, there's a few things that we could do to this. So we'll go ahead and take it into Photoshop. So again, we right click and we go edit with Photoshop. Alright, so now in Photoshop, I'm going to hit Ctrl-0 to scale this up all the way. And firstly, I don't know if I can very cleanly get rid of this portion, but we can certainly try. We can select this image, we can hit M for the marquee tool and select this region here and go to Edit Content Aware Fill. Use a sampling brush, okay. And we gotta select the areas that we want to be able to use. So we can just kind of select some of the floor next to it. We'll get this green region and we'll hit, we can see here a preview of what's gonna happen. So that's not great. Let's see. The more floor we give it, hopefully the better it'll get. Maybe we'll give it some wall too. Here we go, hold Alt to remove from your selection. All right. You've got some weird reflections, but I think we can work with that. We'll hit OK. And now what we can do is clone stamp over the top. So we'll hit the stamp tool with S, hit Alt to sample over here. And on this new layer, we can start painting in with the other layer. So select the background layer first, Alt, click on that texture, go back to that layer above, and we can turn off aligned so that every time we put the brush down, we're using a different section, or we're restarting the section. We don't carry it through. So the thing here is kind of working, knowing the image that you're kind of pasting in. So I'm kind of faking, basically, yeah, painting in with the image, using different sections. So I can now sample maybe something more over here, where we have less reflection or it's more matte. And painting out, making it as close as possible at what should be there. Okay, now we can hit Control-D. We gotta soften this out, so we'll hit Filter, or duplicate the layer first. And we can go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, increase it so it blurs out just a little outside of the edges. And then we can also go back to that original layer underneath. So we'll call this one Blur. And we'll set this one over here to stamp. So for the stamp one, we can hit M or W for the wand, and deselect sample all layers so that we can select the negative region here. Control Shift I, so that we now have this portion here. We have everything within this layer. And we can go over to select and mask so we can add in some feather to our selection. And by adding in some feather, which we'll be able to see, let's see, preview. I'm trying to find here where you can change the preview mode. I know I've seen this before, but in any case, we can use the object selection tool to select this piece here by drawing a rectangle around it. If we need to fill it in, we can use the lasso tool. Nope. Looks like my Photoshop is glitching out. Alright. I can't seem to get out of... This has happened to me a few times with the lasso tool. I don't know what's going on with that. Let's see. There we go. Anywho, we can select the wand tool, or let's just, from the original, forget using the wand tool and going into that mode. Let's go over here with the lasso, and let's go over to feather. And feathering, we can add 12 pixels, and that's basically creating a gradient for the selection on the outside. Perhaps we can go into 20 even, and we can hit the mask tool right here. So that we're basically blurring that out. What that looks like by itself right here with the mask. We can take this further by using the brush tool, the soft brush, and over the mask we can use white and black to fade this in. So 30%, 20%, 30% opacity, 20% flow over the mask, and we can maybe increase the flow to 80 for this selection, and use black to fade out those edges. Probably a better way of doing this. But I found this to just kind of blend these two enough after a little bit of tweaking. Should have kept the original image underneath. We can bring that back in to finish cleaning up those corners. Put that in place. All right. There we are. That's where we end up at with all our layers on. Not the cleanest, but pretty clean as far as the time that we're going to spend on it here. And also it's pretty cropped in with the view. So we had our, we have to save this. We have our blur layer. We'll look at them one by one. So we have our blurred out layer. We have a stamped layer with a mask on the edges. And then we have the original image. And underneath that, we have a content aware filled image. So if we needed to, we could also mask the original if there were also parts we wanted to hide out of that. We can brush those out if they're showing up. Yeah. All right. So with that pasted out, we can go back into InDesign and drop that in. Now the cool thing here is if I'm back in Photoshop with this and I want to also create the same layer adjustments that I had before, I can go to Home and I can open this one that I just did earlier, and I can select all these adjustment layers that I used here. And I can paste them above on this one. Obviously there's going to be some adjustments that have to be made, but at least you're starting from, well, yeah, this is an entirely different render. Probably saturated it way too much, but you can start from a profile that you've already been working on and bring in that same reference and bring in those same adjustments and then tweak it down into what you need. We're going to get rid of this mask. And when we save this, we can go back to our InDesign, and over in our links panel, we'll be made aware here that this file, right, because of this symbol right here, the yellow triangle, modify, double click to update. We can just double click and it'll update. Cool. Let's drop in some other views very quickly just to fill in this page. And at this point in time, if anybody watching, you want to add any suggestions here or any questions on how to do something in particular over here, crossing over the two, I can wrap up with just dropping in some inspo images in here that were used to just kind of create this aesthetic to give more context for the world this chair is meant for, or the aesthetic it goes for, the concept that led to it. Okay. Cool. So last thing we can go into is using this chair to kind of create little icons to show around. So say for this beginning portion here, I want to get rid of these images in the background, and this will obviously all change. We can call this I forget what I call this, or just call it a concept chair for now, placeholder. Take away hyphenation. I hate that. Oh, and templates or older files have that in it. Paragraph. Can we turn off hyphenate there? Okay. So I want to use the chair as sort of like an icon. So I will go over here and select a side view, place that in, size it, and you know it, let's right click and go edit with Adobe Photoshop. Okay. So now what we're going to do is kind of turn this into a vector. So we'll go over to channels and we can, I think it was control click. Yep. Control click any one of these or all of them. Actually, it would help a lot first to go to adjustments, brightness, contrast, and just turn the brightness all the way down and the contrast all the way up. Or even, I think just messing with your curves too. A curve adjustment to make that a total silhouette. And then we go to channels, and now I don't think it matters which one we select. Control click any one of these, and we'll select that negative space. We can hit Control Shift I to now select that closed in region. And we can hit the, let's see, it was the, we go over to paths and we select right here, make work path from selection. So now that's become a vector path, which means we can basically go into layer, new fill layer, new shape layer. You know that feeling when you scroll over the same thing over and over and you feel like you're just missing it? Layer mask, vector mask, current path. I think I just have to do new fill layer, solid color, right? Yeah. New fill layer, just to fill that in, and we get an SVG. So it doesn't matter what color we can do. I mean, we could do like something like that, bright orange. I think I might still have that. Nope, I thought I still had the hex code pasted in, but we'll just keep it black. And with that, we have basically a vector layer. Right here, a shape object. So if I turn off the rendering, I turn off my adjustments, we just have this shape layer, a vector of the chair. So I can save, go into edit, and I can do side vector. Okay. And if I go over into InDesign, I want to replace that with my vector. Cool, we can just get rid of the fill. And we can simplify this even more in Photoshop. So, whoops, that was Blender. We go back into Photoshop, and we can sort of clean this up or simplify it a little bit by hitting P to select the path tool. So we can remove these points, or we can sort of adjust them. We can adjust their handles with the shortcut A, the direct selection tool. So you see like this handle is kind of screwing this up. We could delete this whole side over here, or just have it mirrored. That would require, it might even be easier to just use the pen tool and perhaps even just trace it over as a new path. You can just create a new path and hit the pen tool and then start filling in. By clicking and dragging, you're creating curved handles. And then we can fill it, do shape. And this is almost even something I'd want to finesse a little bit more on Illustrator, which you can just copy paste this into Illustrator if you wanted to use the Illustrator tools to create this. Anyway, those are techniques that you could use to kind of modify this vector and simplify it even more. If we have the pen tool on any one of these selections, so we go back to this work path or back to that layer shape and hit P, let's see if we got these points show up, and then we hit P by hitting direct selection tool with A, and then P, hover over these vectors or these points, and we can delete them. So I just want to get rid of this little piece right here. You can also do it with the direct selection tool if you select those points and then just hit delete. Oh, there we go. We can also drag a square selection to finish cleaning that up. We can remove points like this. We can add them back in with the pen tool, or the what is it here? Add anchor point tool. By clicking and hovering over the pen tool, we can hit add anchor point tool. So we can add a point right there, hit A, move that into place. Oh, select the wrong point there. There we go. And cool. Got the point across. Close all these up. What would be cool to add in this page, which I'd maybe produce a side, would be a sketch. So on this side, maybe have a sketch detail of something I'm trying to put on that page. And that would basically complete the set. But those are basically, you know, the quick integrations or tools, the quick adjustments that I typically do to kind of put together a lot of images that come from different places in one InDesign file with the help of Photoshop. So hope you found some of these tools helpful and they're useful for putting together your next design presentation. And yeah, let me know what you think. Always feel free to leave a comment. Read them all. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next live stream, Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Thanks for tuning in and catch you on the next time. Thank you.